couple shows ago we talked about how a lot of Republicans were being led astray by the liberals, by the neocons, by the progressives, whatever you want to call them. We'll just say liberals for now. It's a familiar term. And they have infiltrated the Republican Party. There's no doubt. And I have heard certain Republicans refer to this as a democracy. We do not have a democracy. We have a republic. A constitutional republic. A democratic republic. Whatever you want to call it, it is a republic. That means... Well, first, let me tell you what Jefferson said. Jefferson said that a democracy is mob rule. Ben Franklin said it's two wolves and a sheep fighting, deciding what's for dinner. The minority is not protected in a democracy. It's majority rule. That means you can have the television as a propaganda tool, and you can sway the people to do whatever you want them to do. And they've been trying for a long, long time to make you think that you live in a democracy. You do not. And you can fight me all you want on this. That I'm telling you the plain truth. That's how it is. I don't give a damn what you think about what happened in the Civil War or Lincoln or whatever. Doesn't matter. It's still a republic. If you can keep it. This is the way we vote. We vote with we go to the polls and we have a popular vote, but then we have another vote, which is the republic way of doing things. It's not democracy. If we voted like a democracy, can you imagine? Can you imagine what would happen in this country? There are people who know exactly what's going on because they eat, sleep, and breathe politics. And they know who the best people for the job is. They represent you. They have the gall to put their names on a ballot. They have the gall to... Some of them don't even put their names on the ballot. They go and they go door to door. They research. They oh my God. There's so many things that these people do, and they're so active. And believe me, there are people looking out for your best interest. Because your best interest is the Constitution of these plural United States. The federal government does not control your state. In the Constitution, it is only allowed to do a certain amount of things. Everything else is left up to the states. Some people really need to do their homework. Your Constitution is only 14 pages long. Okay? In your little book here. 14 pages long. It trumps all that stuff because they didn't amend the Constitution. They find it's easier just to make up laws, but that doesn't mean they're constitutional. That they haven't amended it. No, it still stands. Still stands. Solid. You have to protect it. with everything you have in you, or you're going to lose it, and it's going to be hell for you. You think you take this document for granted, and you toss it around whatever way the political winds blow, and you say, "Oh, we gotta beat Obama. What are you guys doing? We gotta beat Obama." Yeah, we gotta beat Obama. But right now, we're still in a primary race. We are not worried about Obama right now. If you think Ron Paul could not beat Obama, you've got a screw loose. Plain and simple. Or somebody has brainwashed you so bad you don't know which direction you're going in. You don't think the Constitution is going to beat back socialists? You don't think the Constitution is beating the communists? There's nothing like it in the whole entire world. You don't think that the majority of the people want their God-given rights? How can you lose with the Constitution behind you? How can you lose with an impeccable voting record? How can you lose when you've been right about everything every time? I don't understand. And you think a guy who flip-flops all the time and is deceitful and is milking the government is the one? Really? Of course you do, because that's what you've been taught. You've been taught for the past 4 years that Romney is the man, and that's who you're going to go for. But, you know, if it is, it is. But there's another guy in the race. And you're okay with your party breaking the rules? Well, yeah, we can break the rules. Yeah, just wait a minute. What if the government started saying that? What if they started saying, yeah, we pulled you over for a broken tail light, and I'm having a really bad day, so I'm going to just beat the shit out of you, okay? And your rights are suspended for now. No attorney. I'm not going to read you your Miranda rights. You're just going straight to jail. We're going to whoop the living shit out of you, crap out of you, and, you know, hey, whatever. Is it going to be funny then? You're gonna make fun of the Constitution then? What if it was your kid or your wife and they did that? Would you be happy then? Would you want your Constitution back? You bet you would. That's the only thing keeping that from happening. That's what we follow. The only reason we've lost a lot of our rights is because of this. Is because you let it happen. Because you hold your nose and vote for McCain when you had a better candidate. Now you want to hold your nose again when you've got a better candidate. Don't believe the hype about Obama. He has ruined it with his base. He has ruined it with all those people that voted for him before. He has let them down, and they are pissed. So don't think for a minute that Ron Paul cannot beat Mitt Romney. And don't think for a minute that Ron Paul cannot beat Obama. You're crazy if you think he can't do it. And I tell you another thing. You need to take a look at your party rules. Your party has a rule, Rule 38. Let me get my stack of crap here, so I'm not just going off of memory. Rule 38. No delegate or alternate delegate shall be bound by any attempt of any state or congressional district to impose the unit rule. To my knowledge, that's only in a general election. This is a primary. These are two private organizations. Okay? They make rules. And we follow those rules. And if the RNC doesn't do something, they've got a big... If they don't back off the Romney campaign, they've already kinged him. Okay? He hasn't won anything. He has not won the nomination. They violated Rule 11 by backing him. If you're going to be involved, and if you're going to go into a forum or come on the air or speak out, you had better know what you're talking about. Because a lot of people don't. And it scares me. I mean, it scares me to the bone to think that my fellow Republicans, not all, obviously, but just people like Todd believe that we have a democracy. That scares the hell out of me. You know, Hitler said that if you repeat a lie enough times, it becomes the truth. And that's what's happening. People lie and lie and lie and lie, and pretty soon you think it's true. Now, something a couple interesting things happening lately. In Oklahoma, the convention got out of hand. They were not allowing points of order, this, that, and the other thing. They weren't following the rules, Robert's rules. I am Robert Rule. I know all about Robert's rules. Parliamentary procedure. They were not following it. And people were upset. Well, of course, the dingbats, of course, they were Romney supporters, which probably were not Romney supporters a couple months ago. But they've been scared into thinking that Obama will be president again if Mitt Romney wins. Au contraire. It's just the opposite. If Romney is elected, it's pretty much guaranteed that Obama will remain the president and carry out the rest of his orders. So, but now here is another thing that I predict. I have heard chatter, lots of chatter, and it's getting louder, that they're looking for a way to suspend the elections. And I believe that is in case the Ron Paul people do take over the convention in Tampa and Ron Paul does become elected, because then the establishment has a real problem on their hands. Because their monopoly game is over as soon as that happens. Are you a Tea Party member? Do you want real change? Because that's what's going to happen. Your taxes are going to be cut in half. The jobs are going to be coming back. Wall Street bankers are going to go to jail. Departments are going to get cut. Oh yeah. Now that's real change. Establishment does not want that. Now for those of you who are sitting there thinking, oh, this guy's off his rocker, this guy's crazy. No, this is what's going on. You need to start paying attention. And I told you, have your stuff ready to go, and find a place outside of the city when the proverbial you-know-what hits the fan. I'm letting you know. So you saw in Florida, they're training for the martial law. They are training for the chaos. They are training for the collapse of society. We want to do this the smart way, without a war. Because what do people do when they have nothing left? They go crazy and they start war. They're just going to riot in the streets. It's going to be chaos. We've been trying for the past 5 years to get you educated. Now, I don't know if you're too hard-headed or the brainwashing is just too intense. So, in Oklahoma, some of the Romney people who, like I say, probably voted for someone else, now they've been had the hell scared out of them, thinking that Romney's the only one that can beat Obama, which isn't true. Those people got irate and started pummeling Ron Paul supporters. 70-year-old man was punching a Ron Paul supporter in the head. A 70-some-year-old woman was punching a girl in the head. They were just going nuts. Acting like animals. Then the RNC, the GOP there at the state convention in Oklahoma, turned off all the lights. They sealed the voting, sealed off the room for voting so that people could not cast their votes. They started unplugging microphones. They all kinds of stuff, because they knew the Ron Paul people were there and that they were going to take over because all the other people had left. Now, lucky for you, the Ron Paul people were prepared. They had brought microphones. They had brought paperwork. They were prepared for this. They knew it was going to happen. The RNC, or the GOP in different states, has done this everywhere else, and there's a good indication that they are getting their orders from the RNC themselves. So, they went outside, and since they did not get a 2/3 majority vote to shut down the convention, the Ron Paul people did what they have the right to do under the parliamentary rules. They went outside, they reconvened, they voted the platform, and they voted the delegates. The whole world was watching. It was streamed live in a couple different places. In one place that I viewed it live, it had over 50,000 streams. So, yes, there were a lot of people watching from all around the country. The RNC is not going to be able to get away and lie about this. Everything was done according to the rules. I watched it. And you people who supported Bachmann and then you supported Herman Cain, let me tell you something. Bachmann has now been found to be a dual citizen. Herman Cain used the Pokemon theme, and his 999 plan came out of the game SimCity. Are you kidding me? You were all gung-ho for those people, and then Santorum came along. Seemed like a legitimate candidate. But he didn't vote in your favor, ever. His voting record was pathetic. And then he admitted that he went along, who wanted that guy. And then the news came along, and all these pundits and talking heads and idiots said that Romney was the only one that could beat Obama, and they cited the polls. I told you about the polls. The polls are fake. I wouldn't even pay attention to a poll. You couldn't pay me to pay attention to a poll. Those same polls said Ron Paul was going to win in Iowa, the very first election. Even the exit poll said he was going to win. But he didn't. He came in third. So how are you going to tell me that Romney's the only one that can beat Obama? You're going to go by polls? Really? Stop it. You're killing me. Oh. Get it together, guys. A lot of you Republicans out there have some waking up to do. You have a lot of waking up to do. Now, I'm going to play for you an interview. This came out of Arizona, where the Romney folks were stuffing the ballot box, and they were told that it was okay. The chairman, the state chairman, said, "Oh, that's okay. Just don't pay attention to that. Just don't pursue it any further." Really? Oh my gosh. Here we go. Take a listen to this.
I live in Coconino County.
Hey, this is Harold back on the floor. I told you there was some craziness going on that was hard to describe. And so one of the things that was mentioned was ballot stuffing. So we have Virginia guest with us who's actually going to explain what she saw and what she heard from the convention. So Virginia, go ahead.
Hi. Not long ago, before we started voting for the alternates for the A and B delegates to go to the National Convention in Florida, a lady sitting a couple rows behind me got on her cell phone, and I heard her speaking to a relative or a friend or whoever it was, telling them that she was going to pick up a bunch of ballots because she was the only person left in her district or her group, and then she was going to go home. And so I devised from that she was going to be voting for all of them even though they weren't there. A while later, as we were voting, I heard from some of the other people in my group who sit around me that they did see people stuffing like 8 ballots at a time in the box. And so I immediately walked up to the guy who was guarding the ballot box, told him what we saw, asked him if he saw it. He said yes, he did see it. He saw people with more than 4 or 5 sheets stuffing them in there, but he was told to allow that. He told me that that was controlled for because...
Ladies and gentlemen, I just want to stop that for a minute because you heard a couple little pauses in there. They are trying to hack the system. They apparently do not like this right here that I'm playing. So if I lose you, hopefully I'll be back as quickly as I can. So I just want to mention that they are trying to hack in. So be patient. Hopefully we can get this whole clip out.
Our chairmen were only given enough ballots to hand out to everybody who was physically sitting there at the time. I told him that's not true. My committee chairman was handed more ballots than there were people in our group, so I know that it could be the case for others as well. And he said, well, that shouldn't have happened. They should have only gotten enough ballots for everybody who was sitting there. So he told me to go to the main table and tell them. So I did. I went up to the main table, but there was nobody there. And so I addressed the state chair, Tom Morrison, and I told him what I told him what I had observed and what I had heard from others. And he basically told me that he would figure it out, you know, to just go sit down and not to pursue this any further. He didn't stop the election. He didn't stop. He didn't ask the guy that was guarding the ballot box. He didn't do anything. To pursue it, and I kept talking to these gentlemen up on the stage. They told me to have a nice day. I told them that I wanted to make a motion to disallow the tally because of ballot stuffing, and they told me that they weren't going to do that because they were going to do whatever their lawyer told them to do. I just don't understand. They're ignoring it. They're acting like it didn't even happen. There's multiple witnesses who saw it.
Now, you heard her say that the chairperson told her that they were going to do whatever the lawyer told them to do. Okay? Now, you remember I played a clip the other day about Romney saying, well, you know, they asked him, would you go to war without a constitutional, a congressional approval, according to the Constitution? And Romney said, well, no, we'll let the lawyers sort it out. There's a lot of jokes about lawyers, ladies and gentlemen, and you know exactly why. They are pretty much getting to be a cancer in this society, and I'm sorry. I have a lot of friends who are lawyers, a lot of good ones, but even they can be fooled. They get fooled in school, you know. Hey, let's move on.
I told them about it while it was happening. They could have stopped it. They chose not to.
We don't. Physically threatened Sean Dow. It actually physically threatened Sean Dow behind closed doors.
Sean Dow.
Physically threatened him. This is like one big, huge mafia day.
So they physically threatened someone behind closed doors. Let me tell you something. The day you physically threaten me behind a closed door, I'm going to whoop your ass behind that closed door. I hope you get that message loud and clear. And all of you should be standing tall and doing the same. We will not be threatened. And it's a good thing those guys at the convention had patience when those Romney supporters started beating them in the head. Because I don't give a damn. If you're going to start beating me over the head, you not only did you invade my space, you assaulted me. I'm going to commence whooping your ass. I admire these folks for keeping it cool. But if it's me, you better hope. If I'm at a rally somewhere, or if I'm at a convention and you come and threaten me, it's over for you. That plain and simple. I'm not going to take that. So here's a message to all of you who want to get rambunctious and start physically assaulting people. You better watch out, because the next person you assault might be me. moving on. Man, what is going on? It's unbelievable. So, very interesting nights in Oklahoma, Arizona, and wasn't there somewhere else? Idaho. The Ron Paul people have laid out their plan for Idaho. You know, Idaho is new to the caucus, and so of course the GOP there is going to the establishment. I keep saying the GOP. I am part of the GOP. We are part of the GOP, the grand old party. We are Republicans. But you have to understand there are establishment Republicans. Either A, they like where they're at, they make a lot of money, they have power. It's kind of like a mafia group. Or B, they are wolves in sheep's clothing, meaning they are liberals disguising themselves as Republicans. They will push democracy on you. We don't have democracy. We're a republic. They will push their big government agendas on you. Even Agenda 21 they will push down your throat. And you have to watch out, because if you, let's say you run a local 912 group or a local Tea Party group, that local chair is going to kiss your ass, try to get in good with you. And this has happened even here. There was going to be there's a group in Ohio where they were going to have a controversial person speak at a meeting, and the chair in that county said, hey, you know, that might not be good for us, blah, 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 blah. Can you not do it? And that person running the group backed down. Now, if you were listening to my voice right now and you run such a group, I would ask that you did not back down. Because we, the people, control our county government. They don't control us. And if you think this is set up like a corporation where you have to kiss butt to get to the top, I'm going to tell you now, people are going to respect you for your stance rather than your butt kissing. Okay? This is not a corporation. I'm just saying. Okay. So, in all police departments around the country, they are releasing data showing a rise in the number of stops on the streets. In New York, police officers stopped people on the streets more than 200,000 times during the first 3 months of 2012. And the reason for that is, well, in New York, the reason for that is Bloomberg, but in other areas of the country, it's because cities are strapped for cash. And this is how they make their money, by giving you tickets, by hauling your butt to court. You notice a lot of cities have set up their own court system. It's a revenue generator. That's all it is. They want to make money. That's why if your city, this is why you need to be involved and go to council meetings. Because if your city's planning to set up a court, well, then you're just a sheep. They want to shear you, get the wool, get your money. Take a little bit here, take a little bit there. That's their revenue stream. I guess it could be argued that that's better than accepting money from the federal government, but they're going to do that anyway. Okay, so you have to go to council meetings, and you have to stop these things, and don't be afraid to speak up. And always keep a camera on you. Always keep your camera ready on your phone. Keep your recording device ready on your phone. I've been able to record a lot on mine and archive it. I've even got the 4G where you could just upload it straight to YouTube. So if I'm ever in a pickle, I'm just gonna stream it right to YouTube. That's your security blanket. Make sure you keep it with you at all times. So, Rand Paul gave a speech in Austin, Texas today. Or May 6th, rather. Yeah. May 6th. And I wanted you to hear it because it's a really, really great speech. And you know, Rand Paul was just in the news saying that Obama's thoughts on the gay marriage were it doesn't get any gayer than that. I don't know where he was going with that, but this is a good speech. Also, while I'm on the subject, let me see. On the cover of Newsweek, which you know is a big establishment magazine, they named Obama the first gay president. Now, how is that funny? Because you remember before the election, a man came out and said that he had sex with the president, and the story disappeared rather quickly, but it has resurfaced a few times, and that's what makes that cover a little funny and interesting. Let's see, Greece is out of control. Fears are growing that Greece will leave the euro. Now, this plays into what the bigger plan is. The bigger plan is to collapse the euro, collapse the dollar, and collapse other currencies and bring in a one world currency, which will then bring in a one world government. They have no use for our Constitution. They want to open the China market because, of course, there's billions of people there. There's only 300 million of us, 360 million of us, whatever the new numbers are. And they would much rather cater to a market of billions rather than a couple hundred million, which makes good business sense. However, the part that they don't need, that they have no use for our Constitution, concerns me deeply. Now, what is my opinion on the whole gay marriage thing? I guess I could weigh in. marriage should be out of government completely. It should be up to your church. That's my view. I don't have any use for the government being involved in marriage. When the papers are signed for divorce purposes and things like that, you can get a document, attach your names to it. But as far as the ceremony and everything else, I think it's up to the church. I really don't have a problem. Now, some people will say, well, what about the kids? Well, I mean, that's up to the adoption agency. They can't very well have kids together, can they? Unless, of course, you're lesbian and then you go and find a donor. It's the way I feel about it. Because again, I am not God. I'm not Jesus. I can't judge anybody. I can judge a politician by his voting record, but I can't judge morals. I'm not God, and neither are you. And if you believe in God, then maybe you should leave that up to God, because you're not to judge. And if that offends you, what can I say? Oh, man. Anyway. Lawmakers, there's a story here that lawmakers stay silent over the Chinese takeover of U.S. bank branches. Of course they're going to remain silent. They want to be elected again, which hopefully they won't be. Because as I've told you, a lot of you people don't know your history. The Tea Party was started by Ron Paul supporters in 2007. It was the anniversary of the Boston Tea Party to raise money for Ron Paul. That's the truth. That is the plain truth. Now, a lot of it was glamorized by Fox News, and they came out with the Tea Party Express. And so, of course, all the Fox News viewers and listeners all jumped on board, and they thought, hey, man, this is great. We're going to go to Washington, have a million-man march. At first, the news wasn't going to cover it, and then people started complaining. They said, oh, only this many people came. But then it was proven that millions of people went. It was how can you put it? It was a trend. People jumped on board. Hey, this is cool. I mentioned that a friend of mine and I saw a guy with the Gladstone's flag in his back window and said, hey, man, I like your Gladstone's flag. And he said, what? Yeah, your Gladstone's flag. He didn't know what the hell we were talking about. He didn't even know what it was. He just thought it was cool. And that's the problem we have. That's the problem they had with Occupy Wall Street. Just a bunch of people jumped on board. They thought it was cool. And then guys, don't get involved in something unless you know what you're doing. You know what it's about. If you're not willing to put in the research and learn the truth, how exactly are you helping anyway? You're not. You're just causing more problems. So the New York Police Department is still stopping pretty much whatever they want to do, and the rest of the company or the rest of the country just says, "Hey, go ahead, man. We don't care. Constitution? What Constitution? You don't have the right to privacy. 9/11, man. Remember? 9/11. No more privacy." You remember what the founders said. See, the founders, you think, were a bunch of dumb hicks. These guys made this country what it is today. These guys were inventors. Ben Franklin invented electricity. These were the smartest men around. They studied every single form of government throughout history and came up with our Constitution. And they said it wasn't perfect, but they did make it so that it would be hard to amend. That way, we wouldn't have all this chaos that we're having today with all these laws being made each and every day, trying to take away your freedoms. And they said, if you give up your freedoms for security, you deserve neither. So you're going to be going, right now it's airports and buses. And pretty soon, when you go to the mall, people are going to pull your wife aside, strip her down naked, feel her up, and then have your clothes put back on. They're going to come to you. They're going to strip you down, feel you up and down, and then they're going to do it to your kids, and you're going to love it, because that's your daddy government, and 9/11 happened. And you think I'm exaggerating? Wait until it happens. The truth is a little hard to swallow, isn't it? I'm going to play a little bit of the Rand Paul speech. It's pretty important.
Told me just last week the Tea Party's dead. You're done for. He says it's over. He says you have no influence and that we will be beaten and that there's no future for the Tea Party. Harry, tell us, which one is it? Speaking in this Texas heat, I'm reminded of Castro. He used to give these 8-hour speeches in the Cuban sun. He was given one of these interminable speeches, and from the crowd came a voice saying, "Peanuts, popcorn, Cracker Jacks." Castro got mad, but he went on. 5 minutes later, or maybe 5 hours later, he heard it again, "Peanuts, popcorn, Cracker Jacks." And he says, "I hear that again. I'm going to kick your butt all the way to Miami." All of a sudden, the entire crowd said, "Peanuts, popcorn, Cracker Jacks." I did have a problem with those light bulbs. I've got a problem with my toilet. I mean, I want the government out of my bedroom, but I also want them out of my bathroom. They tell me what kind of light bulb I can use, what kind of toilet paper. For goodness sakes, these Hollywood celebrities want to tell you how much toilet paper you can use. Is that the nanny state or what? They tell you what kind of shower heads you can have. You know, the light bulbs cost $4. I asked the Department of Energy woman, "Are you against choice?" She said, "Oh no, I'm for choice in light bulbs." I said that you're precisely not for choice in light bulbs. You won't let us make a decision. By the way, do you hate poor people? How are regular people going to afford $4 light bulbs? So President Obama gave a prize recently. $10 million prize to fill a energy efficient, cost effective light bulb. You know how much the light bulb cost? $50. How much did we give Philips Electric? $10 million to develop a $50 light bulb. It's insane. We live in a nanny state. There are 38 federal agencies that are armed. Now you may say we need to have a police, we need to have an army, but does the Department of Agriculture need a SWAT team? No! Recently the Department of Agriculture showed up with automatic weapons and with a Gestapo-style SWAT team to close down a company that was doing the horrendous crime of selling milk directly from the cow. Recently, Fish and Wildlife showed up at Gibson Guitar, once again with armed agents. You know what their crime was? They're accused of breaking an Indian, not a U.S., an Indian labor law that says their product needs to be finished in India. It's a labor protection law, but they're being persecuted and prosecuted for breaking a law that's not even a U.S. law. We put a U.S. citizen, a Florida citizen, in jail for the crime of breaking a Honduran fishing regulation. He got 8 years in prison. One of the regulations was that the fish needed to be imported in cardboard boxes, not plastic. That's a criminal offense under the Lacey Act. We've let our government get away from us. But we're at a point where we need a new generation of leaders. We need leaders who believe in the Constitution. We need to know who will be the next generation, who will be our leaders. Roger Waters asked, he said, did you trade your heroes for ghosts? Did you exchange a walk-on part in a war for a lead role in a cage? Recently I met an Egyptian woman. When they're put on trial in Egypt, they're put in a cage. She's accused of promoting secular democracy in Egypt. And yet what do the people in Congress do to support her? They say, let's send $2 billion of your dollars to Egypt and maybe they'll behave better if we give them more money. But Barry Goldwater, in that book, The Conscience of the Conservative, I think succinctly wrapped up what a lot of us are about when he said, I have little interest in streamlining government or making it more efficient, for I mean to reduce its size. Rather, I propose to extend freedom. My aim is not to inaugurate new programs. My aim is not to pass bills, but to repeal bills. My aim is not to inaugurate new programs, but to cancel old ones that do violence to the Constitution. Goldwater said that I will not attempt to discover whether legislation is needed before I have discovered whether it is constitutional. And if I am neglected, if I'm accused of neglecting my constituents' interest, I will reply that I was told that my constituents' chief interest was liberty. And in that cause, I am doing the best that I can. I can't think of a more succinct way of talking about liberty and freedom and what we're about. We have to fight it. I do believe we are on a precipice. We have a constitutional republic, but we've been losing it for decades and decades and decades. Jefferson said that a pure democracy would be nothing more than mob rule. We had to have rules. There are certain things the majority can't take away from us. They can't take away the First Amendment, the Second Amendment, the Fourth Amendment, any of the Bill of Rights. The majority has no right. Those rights were given to us by our Creator, and they pre-exist government. We have a government, we now have a president who fundamentally misunderstands it. It amazes me that people say that he actually taught constitutional law. He said recently that because Obamacare had passed by a majority, to him a significant majority that the Supreme Court had no right to rule on its constitutionality. We stand at a precipice in our country where we must make decisions, and I don't think we have a lot of time left. Phil Gramm used to talk about there's getting too many people in the wagon and not enough people pulling the wagon. The wagon's getting heavy. Less and less people are working. Less and less people are paying the taxes. We have to do something before there's so many people on the receiving end and so few people on the working end that it becomes, we slide into Western socialism. And I'm afraid we're going in that direction. We are at a point where we're borrowing $50,000 a second. We have to do something about it. But in doing so, we need to recognize that we do have choices. It's not all bad news. We have a great country. I tell people it's not that we are inherently exceptional, but our ideas were exceptional. The ideas and heritage of our Constitution and the Declaration of Independence are exceptional. Ourselves once again, if we will believe in the system of capitalism that made us great, if we will know and understand that if you want to help your fellow man, if you want a society and a civilization that can create wealth to help your fellow man and to be humanitarian, it's capitalism. It creates wealth like no other country ever has. But we have to believe in ourselves again. We cannot believe that because your neighbor has 3 cars and you have a moped, that we're going to send the president to take one of their cars and get you a car. We have to believe that we want to increase that pie of jobs and wealth can increase if we believe in freedom. If we do, we will thrive again. I hope to be at the forefront of that and to continue to fight for you, and I thank you very much for having me.
And there you had it, Rand Paul. That was a great speech. And I hope Todd was listening, because you heard him say, now this is a senator who is probably the biggest well, let's just say he probably knows more about history and what's going on in the world than most of the other senators. And especially more about the Constitution. And you heard him say, Todd, we have a republic. You have a republic form of government. I'm sorry, my friend, this is not a democracy. And for those of you out there who still think that, I have something else for you. Now, this was done back in the 50s. For those who say, oh, well, the Civil War and all that, blah, 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 blah. Well, back in the 50s, they didn't lie a whole lot on air.
A constitutional republic, not a democracy. The ideal of a democracy is universal equality. The ideal of a constitutional republic. A democracy always degenerates into dictatorship, which promises government-guaranteed equality and security, but it delivers nothing but poverty and serfdom for the people it robs and rules. America was founded as a constitutional republic to safeguard the liberties of the people against the tyranny of democracy or of one-man dictatorship. In this century, great strides have been made toward the goal of subverting our republic into a democracy. The foremost tactic of the subverters is subversion of language. By calling America a democracy until people thoughtlessly accept and use the term, the totalitarians have obscured the real meaning of our principles of government. That is a summary of my report on a constitutional republic, not a democracy.
So there you have it. It's propaganda, ladies and gentlemen. That's why I see a lot of Republicans turning into liberals. As I've told you before, it's brainwashing. You have to be careful on who you friend on Facebook and who you meet at these rallies and things of that sort, because there are a lot of liberals who would pose as Republicans and lead you in the wrong direction. Just like the news, you know, you always heard them say, "Oh, Ron Paul, he's crazy. Oh, Ron Paul, he can't win." They say it over and over again, and you repeat it, and pretty soon everyone's saying it. There's nothing that says he cannot win. There is no poll. I'm sorry. It's just the way it is. Right now we have a primary, and Mitt Romney is not yet the winner. We have a convention in Florida, in Tampa. That convention will decide the nominee, and that's the way it is. So now that you've learned a little bit today, I'd like you to take that and spread the truth instead of the lies. And I think I'm going to leave it at that tonight. I will see you here tomorrow at 9 p.m. We have Anthony Millay from New York. Going to be a great guest. I hope you tune in at 9 o'clock. Thank you. Happy Mother's Day, moms, and God bless.